Very much. Minister, can I say I fully support the amendment put forward by Deputy Mark Ward and Pa Daly, which requests that within 12 months from the date of commencement of this bill, the Government would bring forward legislation to reform the Coroners Act 62 to 224. But the important part of that amendment for me is that any new legislation would have due regard to the recommendations contained in the Joint Committee on Justice report. The committee made 15 recommendations, and from what I can see, none of these recommendations, and this was 12 months ago, none of these recommendations are advanced in the current amendment bill. Now, I fully understand that this bill is necessary. I'm not questioning the need for it. I understand all of that, but it was rushed through. We had stage 2 last Wednesday, amendments Thursday morning, and we knew that this bill was necessary 12 months ago when the committee recommendations were published, but little or nothing of substance from those recommendations found their way into the bill. However, Minister, there is one hugely substantial change not contained in those recommendations that has found its way into the bill, and that's to move away from the title of office holder to that of civil servant for coroners. That's a massive change, and according to Eleanor Fitzgerald, President of the Coroners Society of Ireland, that radical change in the bill compromises the independence and functioning of the office of the coroner. Because as we all know, a civil servant operates under instructions, they're not independent. And the implications of this change were not recommended by the committee, and they are extremely far-reaching. I have no idea where they came from, Minister. And can I say, just to finish, that especially in the context that the Committee on Pre-Leg Scrutiny, it provided a written briefing to your department officials, which added the words "for pay and superannuation purposes only" immediately following the proposal on civil servant status. So in other words, section 2C6B, according to the Committee on Pre-Leg Scrutiny, should read: a person appointed under subsection 6A to be a coroner for the Coroners District of Dublin shall be a civil servant in the civil service of the state, and they propose to add "for pay and superannuation purposes only," which I believe would not interfere in any significant way with the independence of the coroner. So I'm just wondering where this came from, how it happened in a bill that has a very particular focus, that doesn't deal with any of the recommendations in any substance from the committee, but yet this is slipped in. So, Minister, I know it's convoluted, but I can only speak in the context of the amendment that we have in front of us. So in that context, I fully support this amendment in two ways, if you like. Number one, in what hopefully it will include in any future bill, but equally that it will be taken into consideration what it did not recommend and what was not recommended by the Committee on Pre-Leg Scrutiny.
Thank you to both deputies. So obviously the amendment tabled by Deputy Daly and Deputy Ward seeks to commit the Government to bring forward legislation to reform the Coroners Act, having regard to recommendations contained in the Joint Oireachtas Committee on Justice report on the examination of the operation of the Coroner Service published in February 2023. And again, I want to express my appreciation for the recommendations made by the committee. I don't object to any of that, and obviously the intention is that I will bring forward legislation that will of course take due regard to the recommendations that have been made by the committee. The concern or the issue that I have with the amendment is that it's very specific to 12 months. So obviously I want to ensure that the legislation can be brought forward as quickly as possible. However, we have just finished a public consultation, so a stakeholder consultation which went out to the general public, to stakeholders, open to anybody to contribute to. It only closed on the 19th of January. So we are at the moment processing the submissions, we're assessing them, analysing them, and the intention is that proposals will be brought to Government for consideration in relation to any necessary changes. I fully agree. I acknowledge that there's an absolute need for modernisation of the coroner's service. There's lots of things that don't work in the way that they should. It hasn't changed in a significant length of time, and there's certainly ways in which we can improve it, many ways in which have been recommended by the committee, but to say that this will be done absolutely in 12 months, there's a challenge there because we don't know what delays or what challenges or what issues might arise, but to assure deputies that it is absolutely the intention. This bill, as you know, is coming forward very specifically for reasons, and there's a time limit to it as COVID issues are running out as well. The reason for the changes around the civil servant state, so this was because we're moving them to full-time salary coroners. So we did work closely with the Attorney General's office, making sure that their independence was not in any way jeopardised or impacted, particularly bearing in mind that they would be designated as civil servants of the state. But again, the legal advice that we have is that it doesn't in any way impinge on their independence or their statutory role. We have other civil servants of the state which maintain independence, so the Deputy Master of the High Court, the Probate Officer, the Examiner of the High Court, the Director of Public Prosecution. So it is very much because of the fact that we've moved to full-time salary coroners that it has moved in that direction, but was very much mindful that this didn't in any way impinge on anybody's independence. So while I support the intention behind the bill, it is the fact that it says 12 months, and I just think, you know, we don't know what might happen or what might arise, and if that weren't to be the case, then but I am absolutely committed to bring this forward as quickly as possible to reforming a system that needs to be reformed, and I think most likely to be working in a collegiate and collaborative spirit with all colleagues in the House to do so. Thank you.